Hello and welcome. This is Mouse Gunner, and we're back with some more medieval engineers, continuing on with the large ship build. Now, outside of what I'm going to show you here, there was a corridor I forgot to pressurize because of the restructuring the ship when I was building that mess area. There was one corridor, like main corridor in the lower section, that got sealed off without any vents to pressurize it up and feed oxygen into that corridor. So I had to do a fix of that. But the main change I'm having is we have the addition of jump drives, which I'm sure a lot of people are excited for, including me. And I had to restructure the ship to go along with that. So showing off here. So we're in the engineering section. So essentially, I have the engineering section divided up into two main parts. We have the outer part, which is essentially the control area of the engineering. And then we have the inner part, which is the main ship systems. It adds a lot of security, and also I kind of drew inspiration from Next Generation, which I've mentioned before, with your kind of glassed off reactor. In any case, when we come in here, we have our two jump drives that I've added in. Now, to add these in, I actually ended up taking out some large reactors. So I had a total of 6 large reactors in here, piped up together so that they were all supplied. Well, I took 2 large reactors out as the jump drives are rather sizable. I needed to remove those to make space for them. At least, in keeping things aesthetically pleasing, at least the way I'd like to keep it. I could have just piled jump drives on top of these reactors and not really remove them, but I prefer to have it so that, the crew can actually access, some of these ship systems without having to use, jetpacks and what have you. The downside of that, obviously, is we've cut out quite a bit of power. I think we were producing over 640 MWs. I'm not exactly sure what the MW means. I'm going to assume megawatts, but I don't know 100% what that stands for. So I'm just going to call them MWs. Now we're around a little over 400 MWs, so quite a bit of power loss from that. But in any case, yeah, 2 jump drives added in here should give us quite a bit of a distance. As before, when we didn't have these jump drives, you would have to use just your basic thrusters, and you had pretty much a meters per second cap of how fast you could go. So going 1,000 meters or a kilometer would take quite a while, and then going beyond that is a really long haul. So. Also, to make up for the power loss, I ended up taking the batteries out of this this inner engineering section, which there were, I think, only 3, and I ended up making like a wall of batteries here in the outer part of the engineering sections to give us a little bit of auxiliary power to make up for that power loss. And if the main reactors go down either due to damage or just not having enough fuel, we'll have this backup power to run a lot of the basic systems to keep the crew alive. Now, obviously, at this moment, a lot of the key systems are pretty much limited to only the engineering section, which is kind of a liability. If the engineering section took a major hit, that would be a real problem, especially for not only the power, but also for oxygen, as all the oxygen generating units are in the main engineering section. As we can see through this glass here, we have 1 and 2 oxygen generating units. If we took a major hit here in the engineering section, that would be a major problem. So it'd be a good idea maybe to have maybe a secondary power and oxygen generation area, which we probably already have an area that we could easily turn into that. So it wouldn't be that hard to set up. Now, I went ahead and set up a cockpit here so we can go ahead and look at our power. So we're producing 448 MWs, whereas before I think it was like 648. So we essentially dropped by 200. Right now, our power usage is pretty minimal, but if we start using our thrusters, max thrust, we see our power usage goes up to almost 55%. Well, pretty much 55% there, a little over 55%. Which doesn't allow us a lot of power for a lot of other things. I like to have a lot of extra power for things because, when you're pushing your ship to the limit, you still want to be able to use some of your other, power draining systems. And you have to consider, with the setup I have now, the jump drives take up almost 15% of the power to recharge. So if we had batteries that needed recharged, we had the jump drives needing recharged, and we needed to do full thrust, maybe to escape somebody, that's a lot of power usage, and that doesn't give us a lot of power to do other things. You know, if we had to put up a fight and defend ourselves, do we have the power to do that? So, you know, I kind of, I'm not so sure if I'm happy with where our power systems are. But again, we could probably set up a secondary power generation area as well as oxygen generation. So kind of a secondary engineering section to allow for emergencies. So I guess it'd be an emergency engineering section. In any case, I think the main thing we're waiting for is to get the jump drive going to see what kind of capabilities we have in this ship. So let's go ahead and grab one of these jump drives, throw it down here into our toolbar, and of course select jump so we can go ahead and do that. And one of the great things about the jump drives is when you go ahead and activate it, it goes ahead and gives you a summary of, you know, what kind of distance you can expect. So we're almost achieving 300 kilometers, which is pretty good distance. You know, how much of that percentage of that distance we can achieve. So 100% because both of our jump drives are charged to the max. How much our craft weighs at the moment, which is, you know, over 16 million kilograms. So that's quite heavy. And how many operational jump drives we have and how many seated crew we have on board, which is me. So let's go ahead and do our jump. I've never actually done this. Let's see what this looks like. All right, looks like we got a 10 count for it to fire up here. All right, I'm assuming it's going to be loading in here for a little while. It'd be kind of cool to have some kind of animation while it does this, because, you know, you have that warp initially, and then it just popped. There we are. But there you go. I guess we just jumped almost 300 kilometers from where we were before. It looks like our ship might have displaced itself a little bit as I see some ship systems kind of transported or teleported themselves a little bit behind our ship. All right, so obviously the jump drives are still a little glitchy, but you know, it is just kind of newly implemented. It was implemented, well, by the time you guys are seeing this video, it's probably a couple weeks ago. But you know, it's still pretty new, so we kind of have to give it some slack there. But it's kind of interesting to see all that in play. And now we have the opportunity. Oh, and it I looks like I warped outside the ship too. Although you hear me walking around, and I'm running obviously into a wall. Oh boy. All right. Well, that's interesting. So we have a little bit of a bug going on here. But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and a little look at how I've updated the large ship build since the last video, just adding in those jump drives, getting it functional. This is Mouse Gunner signing out.